They said it was just a car. But to her it was years of sweat, savings, and sleepless nights. When her parents sold it to fund her brother's wedding, she didn't scream, didn't cry. She simply smiled and sent them a document that turned their pride into silence. The morning sun had barely risen over the quiet streets of Accra when Serwaa stepped out of her small apartment, ready to head to work. Her bag hung from her shoulder, her keys jingled in her hand, and for a brief second, she smiled at the thought of how far she'd come. That little red Toyota waiting in her parking spot was more than just a car. It was her pride, her freedom, her proof that hard work pays off. But today the space was empty. Her smile faded. She blinked, thinking maybe she had parked somewhere else. She walked around the lot twice, her heartbeat quickening, confusion turning into panic. The spot where she always parked gleamed with nothing but dust and sunlight. She rushed back inside, her hands trembling as she dialed her father's number. He answered after a few rings, his voice calm, too calm. "Papa," she breathed, "my car is gone. It's not outside. Someone must have stolen it." There was a long pause before he replied, "Amma, don't make a fuss. We sold the car." The words didn't register at first. You what? "We sold it," he repeated casually. "Your brother's wedding needed money. Just a car. Family helps family." Amma froze. Her knees weakened as she leaned against the wall for support. "You sold my car? The one I bought with my own money." Her father sighed as if she were being dramatic. "You have a good job. You'll buy another one. Ya's wedding is important. Don't be selfish." Her lips trembled, but no sound came out after the call ended. Amma just stood there, staring at her silent phone. Her chest rose and fell heavily. That car was more than metal and wheels. It was 5 years of walking to work under the sun, saving every sadi, eating noodles for weeks just to make payments. It was her independence, the one thing no one had given her. And now it was gone, sold without her permission, sacrificed for her brother's big day. She stepped outside again, her eyes fixed on the empty space where her car once stood. The birds sang, cars honked in the distance, but all she heard was the echo of her father's words. Family helps family. A bitter smile touched her lips as a tear rolled down. "Yes," she whispered to herself, "and one day, family will learn what that really means." Amma sat in her small office that afternoon, pretending to study blueprints, but her mind kept drifting back to the empty parking spot. Her heart felt like a stone. The red Toyota had meant more than convenience. It was proof that her hard work, her long nights at the construction site, and the years of struggle had finally built something for her. But now, even that had been taken away in the name of family. She remembered the day she graduated, how she had looked into the crowd, searching for her parents, only to find empty seats. They hadn't come. They said they were busy with Ya's plans. Yet when Ya opened his small barber shop, the whole neighborhood was invited. There were drums, music, laughter, and speeches. Amma had stood quietly at the back, clapping for her brother, smiling like she wasn't invisible. She had paid for his tuition when their father's business failed. She had helped him rent his first shop. She even bought him an engagement ring for his fiancée because he said he was short on cash. Every time she tried to say no, her mother would sigh and remind her, "Ya is the son. You're just helping the family." But the truth was heavier than words. It was the weight of always giving. Every sacrifice she made became an expectation. Every act of love was taken for granted. She was no longer Amma, the hardworking engineer. She was simply the one who made things happen for everyone else. The car had been her little rebellion, a red streak of independence in a life painted with duty. She bought it with her own savings, after 5 long years of waking up before sunrise and staying late at construction sites, often being the only woman among men. She had told herself, "This is mine, just mine." Now, as she stood by the window of her office, watching cars pass on the busy Accra road, she felt a quiet fire rise inside her. The betrayal still stung, but beneath it was something new, a determination she didn't recognize yet. For the first time, Amma began to wonder what life would look like if she stopped giving and started taking her life back. Amma sat in the back seat of the taxi, her hands tightly gripping her purse as the car rolled through the crowded streets of Accra. The city buzzed with weekend energy. Laughter, music, people selling flowers on the roadside. But inside her chest, there was only noise, anger, and disbelief. Every turn of the wheel felt heavier, like the closer she got to her parents' house, the more her heart sank. When the taxi stopped, she saw it. The house she had helped renovate 2 years ago. The one she had painted herself after sending money home from her first big project. Now it was covered in ribbons, flowers, and bright banners that read, "Congratulations, Ya and Afia." A group of men were loading wedding decorations into a van, laughing as if nothing in the world was wrong. Her mother, Adwoa Serwaa, spotted her immediately. She hurried over, wrapping her arms around Amma in a hug that felt rehearsed, not real. "My daughter," she said softly, "you'll understand one day. It's your brother's big moment." Amma pulled back and looked at her, the woman she had once believed would always protect her. Her mother's smile didn't reach her eyes. There was no guilt, only justification. It was the same tone she'd heard all her life whenever something unfair was brushed aside in Ya's favor. Then Ya came out, dressed sharply in his designer shirt, grinning like the king of the world. He didn't even look ashamed. "Sister," he said, patting her shoulder, "I'll repay you one day. Don't make this about money." For a moment Amma wanted to scream, to tell them how every time she helped, she lost a little more of herself. But she didn't. She just smiled faintly, the kind of smile that made people uncomfortable, because they couldn't read it. Her silence said more than anger ever could. Her mother shifted nervously. You tried to laugh it off. But Amma stood there, calm, unreadable, her eyes scanning the house she had built and the people who took everything from her without a thought. That silence, cold, sharp, and powerful, was the beginning of something new. It wasn't surrender. It was the quiet before the storm. The wedding hall sparkled with golden lights and laughter that echoed through the air. Everyone was dressed in their finest bright Kent fabrics, shimmering gowns, the scent of perfume and pride filling the room. Amma stood quietly in the corner, wearing a simple blue dress, her face calm but unreadable. Around her the world moved in slow motion, her brother Ya laughing with guests, her parents greeting people like royalty, as if nothing had happened. It was supposed to be a happy day for the family, but beneath the music and joy, whispers began to ripple through the crowd. "Isn't that Amma?" one woman murmured to another. "The one whose car was sold for this wedding? I heard she wasn't even invited," another voice added, eyes darting toward Amma's corner. Amma heard every word, the laughter, the whispers, the judgment. It all pressed against her chest like a weight, but she didn't flinch. Her calmness only deepened. She stood straighter, her eyes following her brother as he danced, his hand proudly around his bride, oblivious to the quiet humiliation burning in the back of the room. Her mother noticed her but turned away quickly, pretending not to see. Her father avoided her eyes altogether. The same parents who had sold her car without a second thought now stood on stage, clapping and smiling, calling Ya the pride of the family. Amma's lips curved slightly, not in anger, but in quiet understanding. She realized in that moment that she didn't need their approval anymore. She didn't need their celebration. She was done giving, done trying to belong where she was never valued. The camera flashes, the toasts, the endless praise. It all felt hollow to her now. Because deep down, she knew what they didn't, that everything they were celebrating was built on her sacrifices. As the music swelled, she whispered softly to herself, her voice steady and filled with quiet power, "Let them celebrate. The next celebration will be mine." And as she turned to leave the hall, her heels clicking against the marble floor, she didn't look back. That was the moment Amma Serwaa broke free. Not in anger, but in purpose. The days after the wedding were silent but heavy. Amma didn't argue, didn't call, didn't explain herself to anyone. She simply disappeared from the noise. Her family thought she was sulking, but she was planning, carefully, quietly, and with purpose. One morning, she walked into a lawyer's office dressed in a simple white blouse and black skirt. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of years of being taken for granted. She placed a thick brown file on the desk and slid it toward the lawyer. "These are the original ownership papers of my car," she said softly. "They sold it without my consent. I just want what's right." The lawyer opened the file, adjusted his glasses, and gave her a small nod of respect. "They thought they were helping themselves," he said. "But what they did is illegal. We can't undo the sale, but we can make them face the consequences." Amma leaned back in her chair, her voice steady but cold. "That's all I want, accountability. No shouting, no drama. Just the truth written in black and white." Over the next few days, legal documents were prepared. The ownership transfer, the sale receipt, the proof of her purchase. Everything was lined up perfectly. Amma had kept every record, every receipt, every signature. The very paperwork her family thought didn't matter now stood as her quiet weapon. A week later, early in the morning, a courier walked up to the Serwaa family's gate and rang the bell. Her mother, Adwoa, opened the door with her usual pride. The courier handed her a sealed envelope marked with bold red letters. Official notice, ownership and debt transfer. She frowned, confused, as she opened it. Inside was a formal invoice, the total value of Amma's car, the unauthorized sale clause, and the legal consequences for selling property without consent. By the time she finished reading, her hands were trembling. Ya came out to see what was happening, but his smile faded when he saw the papers. "What is this?" he demanded. Their mother whispered, voice breaking. "It's from Amma." And somewhere across town, Amma sat in her apartment, sipping tea, her phone silent, her justice quietly delivered without a single raised voice. The evening at the Serwaa home was unusually quiet. Plates clinked softly, spoons moved without appetite, and tension hung heavy in the air. Ya sat at the head of the table, a letter trembling in his hand. His face had lost all its usual pride. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Mom, Dad," he said slowly, his eyes darting between them. "She's asking for full payment, plus legal costs." For a moment no one moved. Then his father, Mr. Serwaa, slammed his palm against the wooden table so hard that the dishes rattled. "How dare she take us to court?" he shouted, his face burning red. "We're her parents. She's disgracing her own blood." His mother, Adwoa, covered her mouth with her hand, trembling. "This will ruin the family name," she whispered. "People will talk. They'll say our own daughter dragged us to court." Ya lowered his gaze, guilt flooding his face. "She warned us," he muttered. "We didn't listen." Just then a soft knock came from the doorway. The air froze. Everyone turned, and there stood Amma, calm, composed, dressed simply, yet every inch of her radiated quiet strength. She stepped inside, holding another envelope in her hand. "You're all misunderstanding," she said, her voice steady but gentle. "I didn't take you to court." Her father glared at her. "Then what is this nonsense?" Amma placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward him. "I sent the bill to the buyer. The man who bought my car didn't own what he paid for." Ya frowned and quickly opened the envelope. Inside was the original bill of ownership, complete with Amma's signature, registration stamp, and legal seal. The papers clearly showed she was the rightful owner, and that the sale had been done without her consent. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the faint ticking of the clock. Adwoa's eyes widened. "Amma, this means..." Amma nodded. "It means he never owned it. It means everything you did, every Sadie, now falls back on you." No one spoke. No one could. The power had shifted completely. And as Amma turned to leave, her father's voice cracked behind her. Not with anger this time, but fear. The moment the businessman received Amma's letter, everything changed. He was a sharp man who didn't like being cheated, and the evidence Amma sent was undeniable. The car's registration still carried her name. Legally, it had never belonged to her father. Within hours, he called his lawyer, froze the entire payment, and filed a formal complaint demanding every Sadie back from Mr. Serwaa. By the next morning, news of the dispute had spread across business circles. Calls started pouring into the Serwaa household. The suppliers who had provided catering, decorations, and wedding attire began demanding their pending balances. The bank froze part of their account under investigation. Even the wedding photographer refused to release the final album until his payment was cleared. Ya's new wife, who had spent the last week showing off pictures of her glamorous wedding, now sat crying in their small rented apartment. "Your sister has ruined everything," she shouted, packing her designer bags. "Do something before we lose it all." But Ya had no words. For the first time in his life he felt powerless. The pride he had carried so easily now weighed like a stone around his neck. Their father's blood pressure rose from the stress, while their mother could barely sleep. Every day brought another letter, another demand, another reminder of how the money they had so proudly spent never truly belonged to them. The same neighbors who once envied their successful family now whispered behind their backs. One evening, Amma arrived quietly at their gate. She didn't shout or gloat. She simply walked into the living room where her father sat, holding another bill notice in his trembling hands. She looked around, the expensive chairs, the wedding pictures, the broken pride, and then met his eyes. "The money you used to fund his wedding," she said softly, "came from me. And now it's gone back to where it belonged." Her words were calm, but they struck like thunder. No one replied. Even Ya couldn't look at her. Amma didn't need to prove anything more. Her silence, her composure, and her strength said it all. The tables had turned, and this time justice didn't roar. It whispered that it was a quiet evening when Amma heard a soft knock on her apartment door. She opened it to find her father standing there, shoulders slumped, eyes heavy with exhaustion. The confident man who once spoke with authority now looked years older, as if time itself had punished him. He stepped inside without saying a word, glancing around the modest but neatly kept apartment. It was nothing like the house he once boasted about, yet it radiated peace, something his home no longer had. He sat down slowly, hands trembling. "Amma," he began, voice weak, "you've shamed us. People are laughing at our family. Your uncles call me every day asking how my own daughter could do this to me." Amma stood quietly across from him, her face calm but unreadable. She didn't interrupt. She had learned that silence could speak louder than anger. Finally she said, "I didn't shame you, Papa. You did, the moment you chose pride over fairness." Her father looked up sharply, but there was no hate in her tone, just truth. The words hit harder than any accusation. He opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. For years he had believed that authority gave him the right to control his children's lives, that love meant obedience, and that sons came before daughters. But in that moment, sitting before the woman he had wronged, he saw how deeply he had failed her. A soft knock followed, and her mother stepped in quietly. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, clutching her scarf like a shield. Then in a trembling voice she whispered, "Amma, we were wrong." Tears glistened in her eyes as she stepped closer. "We thought we were protecting the family, but all we did was hurt the only child who truly protected us." Amma's expression softened. She didn't want revenge anymore, only peace. She looked at them both, her tone steady but filled with quiet power. "I'm not here to humiliate you. I just wanted you to understand that respect isn't given because of age or title. It's earned." Her parents lowered their heads in silence. For the first time, they didn't see their daughter as someone beneath them. They saw her as the woman who stood taller than the pride that once blinded them all. Weeks turned into months, and the once proud Serwaa family faced the quiet storm of consequences. The laughter that once filled their home had turned into whispers of shame. Neighbors who used to greet them with respect now watched in pity. Her father, who had walked through the town square with his chest out, now avoided eye contact. Slowly, he sold his belongings piece by piece, until every sadi that belonged to Amma was repaid. It was not money that hurt him most. It was the realization that the daughter he dismissed as just a girl had become the very person keeping the family's name from total ruin. Meanwhile, Amma's life had taken a new turn. Her small projects at work had blossomed into something bigger. She had started her own construction consultancy, where honesty and merit came before connections or favoritism. She poured her heart into her work, not for revenge, but to prove to herself that her worth was never defined by her family's approval. One afternoon, as the sun poured through her office window, there was a timid knock on her door. When she looked up, she saw her brother Ya. He was no longer the confident, loud man she remembered. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes tired. Life had humbled him. He stood at the doorway, struggling to find the right words. "Amma," he whispered, "I was wrong. You did everything for us and we treated you like nothing. I don't deserve your forgiveness." His voice cracked as he spoke, shame heavy in every syllable. Amma watched him for a long moment, her expression calm. Then she stood, walked over, and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Ya," she said softly, "I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Never again will I let love blind me to injustice." Ya nodded, tears in his eyes. He expected her to send him away, but instead she handed him a file, a job offer. "I'm opening a new department," she said. "I need an accountant. But there's one rule. You earn what you work for, not what I give." He accepted the papers with trembling hands. For the first time, Ya saw his sister not as the family helper, but as the woman who had rebuilt everything they once destroyed. With grace, strength, and dignity. A year passed, and the air in Accra carried a new kind of story, one no longer whispered in gossip, but spoken with admiration. The signboard outside a tall glass building read Serwaa Engineering Limited. Beneath it, employees in bright vests moved with pride, each one knowing they worked for a woman who had turned pain into purpose. Amma stood at the entrance that morning, dressed in an elegant cream suit. Her new car, sleek, silver, and shining, reflected the sunlight like a symbol of everything she had rebuilt from scratch. She took a deep breath and looked up at her company's name. It wasn't just a business. It was proof of every sacrifice, every tear, every sleepless night that had once been dismissed as a woman's place. A few reporters had gathered outside, curious about the woman who rose from family betrayal to corporate success. Amma smiled gently at the cameras and said, "Family isn't who takes from you. It's who respects what you build." Her words carried through the crowd like a quiet storm, strong, grounded, unforgettable. Later that day, the grand launch began. Guests filled the hall, music played softly, and speeches were made in her honor. Then, as if time had come full circle, her parents walked in, not with arrogance but with humility. Her mother held her father's arm, both looking older, wiser, and full of quiet pride. They watched from the back as their daughter stood on stage, thanking her team and talking about the importance of honesty and self-worth. When her eyes met theirs, Amma didn't see the people who betrayed her. She saw parents who finally understood the value of the daughter they once overlooked. Her mother's eyes glistened with tears. Her father nodded slowly, unable to speak, but his silence this time carried respect, not authority. As the ceremony ended, the camera panned to the silver car parked outside, its reflection catching the golden sunset. The narrator's voice broke through, calm and powerful. "They sold her car, but they couldn't sell her worth. When she sent that bill of ownership, she didn't just reclaim what was hers. She bought back her dignity." And as Amma walked toward her car, smiling softly, it was clear. She had turned betrayal into a legacy.